The story kicks off with NASA uncovering images of the universe 3 years ago, revealing debris from alien spacecraft scattered across the galaxy. Over the past 6 months, this debris has begun raining down on Earth. The impact of its landing in various locations has wreaked havoc, causing phenomena such as teleportation, mutations, and infections in those exposed. Remarkably, individuals affected by debris gain extraordinary abilities, including the power to create clones, manipulate others, and even open wormholes. As the debris spreads across the globe, its effects intensify, prompting a joint effort by the CIA and MI6 to contain and retrieve it. This is a series called Debris. Let's start with Episode 1. At the start of the first episode, there's a hotel where a group of bad guys, the Mafia, are hanging out. A person who sells stuff comes to them with something special to sell. They're in the middle of their business when suddenly the special police show up. The Mafia figures out what's happening and quickly runs away with their friends. The seller also tries to leave but then sees the police arriving, so he hides the special thing in a drawer in the lobby. He follows the Mafia, but when they go into the kitchen, they vanish out of nowhere, leaving him confused. To escape from the police and the seller's agents, he jumps from the hotel balcony but tragically dies. In the meantime, a hotel staff member stumbles upon the item hidden by the dealer, which turns out to be a piece of debris from the alien spaceship. As debris fallen on the ground, the girl tries to retrieve it but mysteriously vanishes, plummeting to her death on a lower floor. Subsequently, authorities seize the hotel, with MI6 agent Finola and CIA agent Brian taking charge of the investigation. A team of scientists arrives to carefully collect the radioactive debris for research, informing their respective superiors of the discovery. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a woman traveling with her son experiences a sudden and terrifying event on the highway. As they converse, the woman's eyes begin to bleed, prompting her to stop the car. Moments later, she loses consciousness, and when her son opens the car door, she inexplicably starts levitating into the air. The scene shifts to Brian and Finola, who are aboard a flight heading to the same location. During their conversation, Finola reveals that her father had been conducting research on debris before he passed away. The following morning, they arrive at the location and witness the woman from the car incident suspended in midair, trapped at a certain point. Brian releases her sweater from the wires, allowing her to float away to another area where numerous other bodies are also hovering in the air. The entire team of scientists arrives, and after retrieving the bodies, they conduct examinations. Dr. Sharon informs Brian and Finola that the individuals are in a coma-like state. They begin the task of contacting the families of the victims, only to discover on CCTV footage that the girl found in the store had encountered a boy named Kieran and was assisting him by giving him a ride in her car. After locating Kieran, they arrive at his house to find his mother's lifeless body near the premises. Brian spots a massive chunk of debris in the nearby forest, which appears to be the cause of the sudden disappearances and deaths. Despite searching, there's no sign of Kieran, the young boy, in the house. Consequently, they contact his sister Ayla, informing her about their mother's coma-like state and Kieran's disappearance. However, Ayla reveals that Kieran had actually passed away in a car accident 7 months ago, leaving everyone perplexed. Meanwhile, Kieran seeks help from an elderly lady at another location. On a different note, Finola approaches the nearby debris to gather readings when she starts witnessing glimpses of her deceased mother, adding a new layer of intrigue to the unfolding events. As night falls, Ayla returns home and reveals that her mother had been deeply depressed for 6 months before suddenly becoming joyous and inviting her over, only to retract the invitation the next day. Upon hearing this, Brian and Finola speculate that Kieran, the young boy, may have returned due to the influence of the debris about a week ago. Finola explains that when she approached the debris, she began experiencing visions of her mother, suggesting that the debris has the ability to alter reality by accessing and manipulating memories. They deduce that in order to sustain himself, Kieran needs the energy from humans, hence why he is taking people's powers and inducing comas. Meanwhile, Brian receives a message indicating that a woman has been spotted with Kieran, the same boy they are tracking. Meanwhile, in another location near the debris, the same Mafia group is spotted by an agent. Suddenly, the Mafias teleport and vanish, but one of their friends faces an accident during the process. Shocked by the accident, the Mafia member hastily shoots his injured friend. The nearby area is swarming with police, drawn by the sound of the gunshot. Upon arrival, they discover the Mafia's friend embedded in the wall, a consequence of the teleportation mishap that led to the tragic shooting. As Finola and Brian track Kieran to a gas station, they encounter the same elderly woman inside the shop. Brian begins questioning her, but suddenly blood starts streaming from her eyes, and she slips into a coma, floating into the air. Meanwhile, Kieran uses his abilities to hypnotize Finola, compelling her to drive the car. Under his control, Finola obeys and drives away. Upon realizing the severity of the situation, Brian rushes back to the lab. The agents summon Ayla and explain to her that her mother's grief has inadvertently brought Kieran back to life, allowing him to absorb the energy of those he comes into contact with. To send Kieran back, Ayla must communicate with her comatose mother and convince her to accept that Kieran is no longer alive and will not return. Ayla approaches her mother and explains the situation, expressing her desire not to lose her parents after already losing her brother. Miraculously, her mother and all the affected individuals awaken from their comas as their connection to the debris is severed. Meanwhile, Finola is with Kieran when he suddenly vanishes as all connections are broken. Finola returns safely and doctors conduct a checkup on her. She confides in Brian, revealing that while under the debris' control, she experienced a peaceful, dreamlike state. As the episode concludes, Brian Sr. informs him that the mafia encountered near the bridge had last been seen with Finola's father, George Jones. But actually, Finola's dad has been killed a year ago, and after this implying that Finola's father may still be alive. This revelation suggests that MI6 might be concealing this information. With this intriguing revelation, the first episode comes to a close. The second episode begins in a quaint village where various metal objects, such as vehicles, cylinders, and alloys, are mysteriously being drawn to a single location. Brian and Finola arrive to investigate this peculiar phenomenon. Finola, who has been in London for 3 weeks, attempts to call her sister but finds her phone unable to connect. She confides in Brian about this, unaware that Brian has learned of her father's supposed survival and his alleged collaboration with the mafia. Despite his suspicions, Brian refrains from disclosing this information to Finola at this time. Upon reaching the village, they are informed by an agent that the villagers have been relocated to a safer location due to the accumulation of metal objects. Despite the large quantity of metal present, there is no detectable magnetic field effect, nor any evidence of debris involvement. Meanwhile, at the orbital agency, Brian Sr., Maddox, meets with another agent named Harris, who inquires about the truth regarding George's, Finola's father, survival. Maddox confirms that George is indeed alive. After some days, Maddox, Brian Sr., and Priya, Finola Sr., hold a meeting where Priya reveals that the mafia group constantly teleporting is linked to an organization known as Influx. Influx operates independently from any government, and it's imperative to uncover their motives swiftly. However, Maddox keeps silent about his encounter with George alongside the same dealers. Subsequently, Brian and Finola return to the village where they encounter a civilian named Eric who appears visibly nervous, suggesting he may be under the influence of the debris. Shortly after, other police officers apprehend Eric and take him away. Continuing their investigation, Brian and Finola come across Eric once more near a car. They approach him to inquire about his earlier encounter with the police, but Eric flees upon seeing them, raising further suspicions about his involvement. Chasing Eric into the warehouse, Brian and Finola split up to search different areas. To their surprise, they both encounter Eric, but the police inform them that they also have Eric in custody, revealing 3 identical individuals. Each Eric is detained and interrogated separately. Tragically, 2 of the clones are killed during an attack. The surviving Eric, whom Finola was questioning, mentions a girl he lost who is now heading elsewhere. With this information, they obtain Eric's details and locate his home address, proceeding to investigate further. Meanwhile, Brian discovers a vast amount of debris in the basement. As Finola investigates outside, she hears strange noises and encounters yet another clone of Eric, adding to the mystery surrounding the situation. As Brian hears a voice from above, he ascends and encounters another clone of himself. Initially intending to eliminate the clone, Brian realizes the true threat and promptly shoots him. The rest of the team arrives, and Brian instructs them not to enter the basement without proper protective gear. Finola discovers traces of Eric's blood in the basement, indicating that the original Eric may still be nearby. Meanwhile, while outside, Finola receives a phone call from her sister Dee. Their conversation turns tense as Dee expresses frustration over Finola's absence following their father's death. However, the sisters eventually reconcile after a heartfelt discussion. As Brian examines the dead body of his clone, he discovers a photo of a girl in its pocket. When Finola inquires about the girl, Brian brushes off the question. Meanwhile, in the basement, the team struggles to contain the debris, facing increasing difficulty in their efforts. Strange noises emanate from the upstairs room, rooms, where two clones of Eric communicate with each other face-to-face. In their quest to locate Eric, they head towards the area where all the metal objects and cars have been drawn. Utilizing a device, Brian successfully locates Eric's car, where they find him imprisoned. However, as Brian attempts to free him, the debris reacts violently, generating powerful shock waves that trap Brian and Eric inside the car. The shock waves continue to intensify, putting their lives at risk. Despite the immense challenge, the team perseveres and manages to close off the debris, halting the waves. With the danger averted, Brian finally frees Eric from the car, ensuring their safety. After some time, Eric reveals that the debris suddenly appeared near his home, coinciding with his girlfriend's decision to leave. Distraught over her departure, Eric wished to stop her, prompting the debris to create clones of him in an attempt to fulfill his desire. This resulted in the entire city being enclosed with metal barriers. Determined to rectify the situation, Eric decides to reach out to his girlfriend and convinces her to return. In the final moments of the episode, Brian updates Maddox on the recent developments. He informs him that Finola had encountered her father in the park, preceded by a message from him indicating that she is not alone. As the episode concludes, it is revealed that Finola has developed feelings for Brian, setting the stage for future developments. In the beginning of episode 3, we are introduced to an engineer woman working near an electrical tower, engaged in a conversation via walkie-talkie. Suddenly, the signals weaken, and she notices a rectangular portal forming on the ground in front of her. Curious yet apprehensive, she approaches the portal, only to be startled by the appearance of ominous shadows within. Fearing for her safety, she promptly contacts the police for assistance. Meanwhile, Brian visits his headquarters and confronts his boss Maddox regarding the truth about George Jones's supposed survival. Maddox confirms that George's body has indeed been discovered, but from his grave. An autopsy will be conducted to determine the identity of the body, shedding light on this perplexing revelation. Brian and Finola receive news of an incident captured on CCTV footage and promptly investigate the location the following day. Upon arrival, they find a team already present, but there are no signs of any debris or portals, and everyone is focused on monitoring radiation levels. Later that night, Finola is reviewing the day's events in her room when she hears the voice of an unknown girl on the radio. The girl mentions seeing lights and asks for help, leading Finola to realize that the source of the strange noises is the same rectangular portal. As the night progresses, they hear the girl's voice again, pleading for assistance. Finola decides they must communicate with her to offer aid. Suddenly, the rectangular portal reappears, revealing more individuals within. Finola engages in conversation with them, and a girl named Nicole responds. Finola inquires about other people present, but Nicole claims to be alone. Suddenly, a scream is heard, and the portal abruptly closes, leaving Brian and Finola to ponder the mysterious events. Upon discovering that Nicole had disappeared in 2019, Brian and Finola are taken aback, as the debris phenomenon began only 6 months ago. The next morning, Maddox meets with a Russian individual named Tarkalov, showcasing footage of debris to negotiate a sale. Maddox's involvement in illegal debris trade comes as a shock, particularly since the US and London had been working to gather and study the debris for its technological potential, as he is himself now selling it to Russia, adding a new layer of complexity to the situation. As Finola and Brian discuss the peculiarities of the portal and the voices they heard, Finola suggests that the other individuals trapped within the portal may be on a different frequency, hence why only Nicole's voice was audible to them. She then shares information about her father, a scientist who conducted research on debris. According to their theory, there exist multiple dimensions within the universe beyond our own. Some of these dimensions may be imperceptible to us due to their size or nature, but certain access points on Earth allow for travel between these dimensions. Brian speculates that Nicole may have inadvertently crossed into another dimension through one of these access points, possibly facilitated by the debris, which now allows them to perceive it. At night, Brian delves into the entirety of Finola's father's video, discovering details about several secret locations potentially housing access points to other dimensions. Jones had identified 11 possible portal locations on a map where numerous individuals had gone missing, including the site of recent incidents. The following day, Finola and Brian discuss their theory with their scientist colleague, who suggests that if the portal could be kept open for an extended period and Nicole could provide more information, they might be able to assist her. Brian observes that the portal signals were strongest when Nicole was emotionally distressed, allowing the portal to remain open longer. In an effort to prolong the portal's opening, they summon Nicole's father and inquire about her disappearance. He recounts the events of Nicole's vanishing and expresses ongoing sorrow. Brian reassures him that Nicole is still alive, but trapped in another dimension, playing recordings of Nicole's communications to provide solace to her father. After arriving at the portal location, Finola discloses the entire truth to Mr. Hegman, Nicole's father, explaining the importance of him communicating with his daughter to gather crucial information and potentially facilitate her rescue. Mr. Hegman begins calling out to Nicole, and shortly thereafter, the portal becomes visible once again. Overwhelmed with emotion, Nicole's father continues calling out to her until Nicole responds from within the portal. In a heartfelt exchange, Nicole's father asks her about her whereabouts and what has happened to her. Nicole reveals that she was in a car park when a sudden storm engulfed her, trapping her in the strange place. She expresses her distress over being unable to escape despite several hours passing, indicating that time behaves differently in her location. Nicole also describes a glass-like barrier in front of her through which she can see the shapes of people. Before she can elaborate further, the portal abruptly vanishes, cutting their conversation short. Nicole's father is overcome with sadness following the disappearance of the portal. Brian queries the scientist about why the portal didn't remain open for an extended period, despite Nicole's emotional state. The scientist explains that the portal requires debris to sustain its opening for a longer duration, highlighting the necessity of obtaining debris for their efforts. Meanwhile, Maddox encounters his colleague Harris, who informs him that the government has detected Tarkalov, the Russian agent. Maddox becomes visibly concerned upon learning this news, realizing the potential implications as he is involved with Tarkalov in selling alien technology to the Russians. Upon receiving news of a debris discovery thousands of kilometers away, Brian and his team swiftly proceed to the location. Upon arrival, they find a car parked beside the debris, indicating that someone else had arrived before them. To their surprise, they spot the Russian mafia silently observing the scene before disappearing upon being noticed. The scientist examines the debris and reveals that it possesses the capability to open portal doors despite being far from the portal itself. He speculates that the debris may contain a navigation module from the alien spaceship, enabling intergalactic or interdimensional travel. This suggests that the aliens utilized advanced technology to traverse different dimensions or galaxies through various access points in the universe. The active nature of the debris prompts the scientist to request its transfer to his office for further analysis. However, Finola advocates for using the debris to rescue individuals trapped in portals, such as Nicole and others. She emphasizes the importance of prioritizing the retrieval of those stranded in other dimensions over scientific study. Despite the scientist's initial refusal, Finola argues that if humanity doesn't utilize this advanced technology to aid our own, then perhaps we are not meant to wield it. Eventually, they locate another piece of debris that is already inactive due to lack of energy release. Together, they bring both pieces of debris to the portal site and strategically reposition the main debris. Slowly, the portal begins to open, allowing Finola to see the trapped individuals inside. However, nobody can cross through the portal until they insert the additional debris, as per Finola's suggestion. This action creates a dual opening, enabling Finola to enter the portal and rescue Nicole and the others. Nicole's father witnesses the reunion and is overwhelmed with happiness, though he is held back from immediately embracing his daughter due to quarantine protocols. Nicole reveals that while trapped in the portal, she experienced time differently, perceiving only a few hours passing while 3 years had elapsed on Earth. Time in her dimension moved much slower than on Earth, leading to the disconnection between their experiences. As the investigation progresses, Nicole shares her experience of longing for her father while trapped in the portal, recounting a shared dream they both had. This suggests a connection between the debris and human emotions. Further investigations reveal that the trapped individuals had disappeared from various locations in different years, indicating their origin from different worlds or dimensions. With government assistance, efforts are made to reunite the rescued individuals with their families. As Finola and Brian prepare to depart, Finola shows Brian a video of a car belonging to the Influx group, the same Russian mafia they encountered earlier near the debris. In the final scene of episode 3, Maddox conducts experiments on the debris in his office. He discovers that the debris possesses teleportation capabilities when he throws a chair into one debris and it emerges from another. However, his attention is diverted when he receives a call informing him that the body believed to be George Jones's is not his, and he watches a video evidence showing that George Jones's body has been tampered with. This revelation concludes episode 3. Thank you all for watching. We hope you've enjoyed this series. Stay tuned for the next episodes and don't forget to share this video with others.